Hello, everybody. Hello. Good evening. I am going to stand because I'd like to. You're quite welcome to stand or sit. This is very informal. It's just about us as a community coming together. 4 seconds. Rachel, get yourself a cup of tea. So I'm really pleased to see the turnout. Thank you so much. Thank you. It means an awful lot to see you here tonight with us. And also, anybody who's watching it live streaming or on the film, the video, hello. You're all welcome. Obviously, you know, not everybody can make it, so it's really nice to be able to have that to look on for those people that can't make meetings. That's basically, it's just making it inclusive. For those that don't know myself, or Claire Harris, or Anne-Marie Bird, who's not here, unfortunately she's not very well, we met a few years back when it was the Jelson's development. And although we knew we couldn't stop the bills, we knew we needed to speak out and become a voice for what was about to happen. So we didn't know how to get the message across. We wanted to make sure we got enough money together for our community, for our schools, for our doctors, the cemeteries, all of that. So we collectively got a few foot soldiers and we knocked on as many doors as we possibly could in Markfield to say, look, this is what's going to happen. We can't stop it. I was the one that was going, no, I'm going to chain myself to a tree. But that's not reality. But what we did achieve was great. We got communication between the parish council and Jelson's, and our voices got heard. And that proved that by getting involved, we all can have a voice. And that collectively brought us together, which then brought us to come into the Markfield Parish Council meetings and feeling very passionate about our village, getting involved. The one thing we wanted to change was transparency. We wanted openness. We wanted it to be welcome. We wanted to continue to be active in that way. Unfortunately, as we sat there, things started to unfold. And sadly, we lost a lot of councillors, good councillors, who really represented us. And I got disheartened. I am one who just believes in justice through the very core of my soul. And then these things started to unravel. Sorry, I do have to read my notes. But
sorry, Mike.
No, Rich, have yourself a cup, darling.
You all right?
So I think that's bringing me up to date. Really, one of the meetings I found out Councillor Stewart, as he was, had left, and myself and Claire were very brave to his door. He could have turned us away, but he didn't. He spoke to us, and together we just wanted to express that we're after the same thing. And that, again, is the openness, the transparency, and community for the good of us all. I'm sure we all really ultimately want the same thing. Before I hand you over to Stuart, I'm going to ask our lovely Margaret Bowler, who is the library trustee, to say a few words, if she wouldn't mind.
Thank you. I've rather shamelessly hijacked the meeting, just to give a little bit of a plug for the library, if you'll allow me to do that. It's being recorded. I hope there's some people watching at home as well, and some of you people here tonight. You may not actually know about it's your community library. So just bear with me for a couple of minutes. I want to welcome you to the library, this community group. We are not taking any money for this meeting tonight. This is your community library. It's everybody's community library. For those of you that don't know, we are trustees. There are 5 of us. 7 years ago, we're just about to enter year 8 running this library. And we formed a registered charity, and we have all the responsibilities of running a registered charity. and we have volunteers, and 4 volunteers read employees. So basically, this is a business. We're in partnership with Leicestershire County Council to deliver a library service, but the rest of the time we are entirely voluntary run. The trustees and the volunteers do not take 1 penny, but we have to fundraise for all of our money. So another message I want to get across, because you are some people who are obviously community minded, and obviously people that are at home as well community minded. We're not getting any younger, okay? We've got a trustee in their 80s, we've got 2 trustees in their 70s, we've got 2 trustees rapidly approaching their 70s. So what I want to put out there is there's got to be succession planning. If Markfield Parish want to retain their community library going forward, hopefully for us a couple of years hence, come and join us, come and volunteer. Have a think about succeeding us as trustees, because we can see, I'm very proud, we've been enormously successful for just under 8 years, but there's got to be some people in this parish that carry on that legacy. So I hope you don't mind me having a bit of a plug, because I wanted to get it out there. Come and join us. Anybody, an hour a week, half an hour a week, bit of gardening, bit of everything else, working behind that counter. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I'm sorry to have hijacked the meeting.
No, you're more than welcome, Margaret. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Stuart Taylor. I was a councillor for a very short period of time. I've been in the village for 7 years now, so I've got a little bit of an understanding of how Markfield works. And it's fair to say, as Manny said, that until they came and knocked on my door, I was sort of had a little spell with the council. Didn't like the direction of travel, particularly with the community centre and the precept conversations. And I've got more and more interested and followed their passion for trying to make sure that the village is understood, is listened, and there's transparency, and that we can all move forward together to get the best for all of us. And so really the topic this evening is about the community centre and the impact of the precept budget on the community centre and on us all. I guess for a lot of you, you'll realise that the community centre has been run for quite a long while by the Markfield Community Association and its trustees. Without boring you with too much detail, I think it's fair to say it's had its ups and downs, it's had its good and bad times, but I think the community has a debt of gratitude to show to particularly Ron and Dawn Grantham, who put a lot of effort and a lot of work into the place for quite a lot of years. And certainly our little group recognise that, and we on behalf of the village would say thank you to Ron and Dawn for everything that they've done. So it came to pass, I suppose, probably, I don't know, a couple of years or so ago that there was a need to move on. There was discussion about lease that didn't go forward, and COVID came along, and so the parish council at that time was sort of a little bit in limbo. There was litigation going on, and it was probably more difficult to get across exactly how difficult it was.
Sorry, we're putting him off. We're trying to get him to speak a bit louder. Oh, I don't know all these hand gestures in the background.
He's not known for being quiet. So there you go. Yeah, so they went through, a process of agreeing that there would be no future lease, and litigation took over. There were various reports commissioned from all sorts of different places to do with governance, to do with operational safety, to do with building conditions, to do with fire safety, etc., etc. So the parish council from sort of late September into October onwards had a fair understanding of what they were going to take on. It's fair to say that there were varying views within the parish council at that time as to how it should be resolved. And it was agreed that I, with another councillor, would go and meet the Markfield Community Association to just see what common ground we've got. I was extremely pleased to have had the chance to do that, because they came across as very caring, as a lot of you know that they are, and that they'd only got the best interests of the community at heart. And it's fair to say that at that time they recognised that perhaps it was time for them to move on. So I did lots and lots of reports and lots of budgets and lots of risk assessments and various other bits of documentation, which if you watch the December meeting I refer to when we have our little debate in here with the parish council. And they were quite dismissive of it all, to be fair, the people that sat around the table. It was upsetting to think that all that effort had gone in to try and make people aware of where we were and what the options were, and it was shuffled away under the table. And on that night, I went home and resigned. It's just as simple as that. And it was on the basis that perhaps, 7 years in the village, I've not been here long enough to have a voice or be able to speak on behalf of newer people. And that's where it ended. And then, as Maddie said, Maddie and Claire came knocking on the door and said, "Can you tell us what's happening?" And once I engaged with the two ladies and other people that have since spoken to me and got to understand just how hard it was for people that care to be heard when it comes to matters of the parish council. And hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at what happened on December the 13th, or whatever it was, 10th, at the parish council meeting in here, and hopefully you've had a chance to form your own views on that. But I think it's very indicative of what our current parish council, the attitude that they had towards the members of the village. Interestingly, and specifically about the community centre, they had a belief that they had to run the building themselves. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, and I don't believe that anything that came out of conversations with the Markfield Community Association would have insisted that the parish council run the building themselves. I think it's also fair to say that, as is well recorded again, and I would just add at this point that everything that we are offering and sharing with you this evening, the information can be found on the parish council's website under minutes and reports and various other things. So, obviously you're very welcome to ask whatever you want. We'll try and answer it with an evidence-based answer, but the information is there for the community to gather if you've got time to sort of explore and read. So it was pretty obvious that there was a good chance that the parish precept would have to be increased considerably to run the community centre. And in pounds and pence terms, the increases probably don't sound a lot of money. But for us, it was about the concept that it wasn't necessary. So if it's £30 a year, for instance, which is the probability with the budget that's published at the moment, our argument is if you haven't got the 30 quid in these current economic times, and there's not many families that aren't struggling, for certain middle income, low income pensioners, I think right across the board, everybody's challenged. If you sort of left with a possible, certainly two options. The first being that, yes, the parish council can continue to try and run it in the way that they are, and everybody has got their own view as to whether or not that could or couldn't be a success. One could argue it would be much of the same, unless, because I don't think in the short term they have got the skill set or the experience or the staff or the ability to make a significant difference in a short period of time. I think what underpins all of this is the fact that the community cannot afford to lose that asset, and the community cannot afford to let it decline to a point where it becomes just a real millstone around everybody's neck. So it is common knowledge that there were two outside operators that were interested, and certainly from previous council members, did a lot of work to get these people involved and interested, whilst maintaining the respect for the legal process and the current operators. So it was all going on there in the background. But both of these operators have shown at the time a very significant interest in being a part of our community centre. They also committed to maintaining and upholding a lot of the community-based projects and clubs and the Mayflower Club and all the other people that have been involved with the community centre from day one. And they made commitment that they would continue to support those groups using the community centre. And the good news for us as taxpaying residents is that after, no doubt, a rent-free period or whatever the lease agreements were, there was the potential to have a not significant rental income from our asset. And somebody who had got an absolute desire to make it work, both for them as non-for-profit businesses, charity-run type businesses, as well as for us as a community. So it sort of made sense that that was a good option that should be explored. I think it's fair to say, and I'm sure Facebook will be telling me different tomorrow, but I think it's fair to say that there has probably been a lot of progress on some of those options.
If you could try and project a bit more.
Does that mean shout?
Yes. To be honest, you were very good at speaking to the council. We could hear every word. But now you think you're in your front room. So project!
Clearly a failed producer or director. So I guess that was the second option that we had an external operator. There is rumour and speculation that there is a third bid being prepared, but we'll not speak about that until we get a little bit more information. What's interesting as well is, and I think it's again it's recorded in parish council minutes, that a councillor was asked to get a health and safety report done on the building the day after the parish council took it back on the 23rd, 24th of November. Today, I've had agreement from the source of that report, which is ME Sports at the top of the village in Markfield, to declare that yes, it was them that did the report, and the report is quite scathing. There are 32, or were 32 non-compliances on there, and they range from health and safety through training, through environmental, to hygiene, to cleaning, electrical testing, a full suite of problems. And there were also 28 building problems that needed to be addressed. So with my mere 52 years in the construction industry, I threw some numbers at the building elements, and and I reckon it's a minimum of £40,000 to bring that place up to a standard where people might consider it as their venue. Because we've got a fantastic venue down there. This good lady had a wedding reception there. Way back
many years ago, yeah.
And I suspect in the latter years there hasn't been many of the events of that size down there. So
A lot of the staff been finished on. The staff. The staff.
The staff.
So the legal position with the staff was that in taking back the building, there was what we call a two-pay arrangement. So they would automatically become employees of the parish council. The MCA, quite rightly, wanted to deal with the staff themselves, but because there was no consultation between the parties, unfortunately, the staff sort of drifted off, and I think there's one member of staff now that's still employed that was employed previously.
Who's that?
Donna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other two ladies have
I mean, to be honest, I won't go around but I've been round there and they've been drinking beer and smoking outside.
I mean, we know, obviously that's everybody's allowed, and we want freedom of speech and everybody to have their opinions, but
I think ultimately,
I just don't think they were very good with kids or,
but ultimately, as Stuart said, because it's our biggest asset for me, it needs so much money injected into it. That's it. Number one. I would like to see events. I would like to see quiz nights for us as a family. Since Claire Harris has took over as events coordinator in this library, there's been some fantastic events here.
They used to do loads there years ago.
Years ago, but that's when I have my wedding. Yes, exactly.
When my stepdaughter was young, we used to
That's what we want back.
I mean, we'd like to obviously in the future, we can't solve everything tonight. I think what we were trying to do with this evening really was just, yes,
You on about it's going to cost how much to bring it up to scratch?
a rough estimate's 40,000.
But where's the money coming from?
Well, we'll come on to that because it's absolutely a very valid point. And I mean, the truth of the matter is,
You say it's going to cost 40,000
yes,
to bring it up to scratch.
yes.
How is it? Wait 2 or 3 years ago, they had the mugger extended, they've done a footpath, they've done a patio and everything, and they must know the building ain't up to scratch and it's going to cost a lot of money. But they still had all that done.
Yeah, that can I say something?
Yeah,
That's not quite true. Because,
Ain't it quite true?
No,
Well, the
because-
footpath ain't true.
no,
Why
I
the
did
patio ain't
I
true?
did patio and footpath and all the kids. I got 99% of that.
Pardon?
I did 99% of that when I was a councillor. But the building,
What do you mean you done 9?
I was involved with it all.
Yeah.
I arranged for it to be done. I was
all
involved
that
with it.
money.
Yes.
Where's it coming from?
It came from our parish council funds that we have in and the money we get from the borough. But you can talk about the building. The people that have got the lease on the building should be telling the parish council if there's a problem, and then they bring it to parish council, and then we can get the contractors in and get quotes to get it put right. We were never told there was a problem with the inside of that building.
Yeah.
So how could we know? Now that we've
I'm
now
not blaming you.
no, but that's
I'm
what
saying it's going to cost
it
40,000.
is, but we didn't know about it
Yeah.
until now, till the lease
Where's all the
was
money going to come from?
Who
well,
was the old leaseholders there?
it was Dorman and Dorman and Ron.
Markfield
Markfield Charity Association.
They
MCA.
yeah. So in effect, it was the parish council look after the building. It was our building. It was your building.
Yeah.
The outside of the building. The internals is the leaseholder.
Yeah.
But the leaseholder doesn't tell us there's a problem with the boiler, or there's a problem with this, or a problem with that. We don't know.
I mean,
And we're not going to go in there and ask every week.
Oh, no, of course.
So that's where it's
Are
come
they
from.
under shouldn't they be telling you that? Aren't
Yes,
they
they should. Yes,
under
but they didn't.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, guys, we are where we are.
Yeah.
I hate
Yeah.
that statement, but we can't turn the clock back and say, I wish we could have done this.
Yeah, yeah.
and you know, hindsight's a marvellous thing. But I think what we've just got to focus on is the fact is that we are where we are.
So where was the money come from?
Well, the money will come from, but the options are that if they carry on running it themselves, or they don't get a properly funded third party like ME Sports or another provider, the truth is that the money will come from us, the community. And that's borne out in the draft budget that they've now put up in December on the Parish Council website, which is where this massive increase in what they call the parish precept is going to come from. So we currently, our parish precepts are around 140,000 a year, which is what Hinkley and Bosworth collect from us and give back to the parish to spend. They want to put it up to 200,000, so that's a £60,000 increase. In real terms, and a very significant ex-councillor went into great details to explain this to me, but it made no difference to me, let me out, because it actually means about £30 a year to a banding council tax holder. What we are saying as a group of people is, first and foremost, it doesn't have to go up. And secondly, it doesn't feel right that if you've not got the 30 quid for the year, and all of us are struggling with heat and gas and food and clothes and all the other things, petrol and everything else, it doesn't matter whether it's 30 quid or 300 quid. If you haven't got it, it's a further burden that you are saddled with, that you've had no chance to have a say in. So what we are trying to gather now is the possibility.
Who would make the decision on the parish council?
Well, the parish council, you see, and if you fast forward, it might be an opportune moment to raise this, that when they set this budget, first and foremost, they've published a budget which they haven't given the public the opportunity to contest or question. This group have written to the council on umpteen occasions asking for breakdowns and backups to how they've come to the numbers. To date, we haven't had the courtesy of any form of a reply. This budget should have been set in December, and the meeting was cancelled twice in December and twice at the beginning of January. So their only opportunity to get this budget through now is going to be, I think it's the 7th of February, the next meeting. And I will go on record as saying that what will happen on the 7th of February, whether they change the budget or not, they will operate in the same way that they did last week in their parish council meeting. They will close the public down. On the 17th of January, it was the first meeting that I could find in the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years of reading minutes where public participation has been at the end of the meeting. So the business is all done. We voted it through. You can't speak because it's got a result.
Are they allowed to do that?
Unfortunately, parish councils aren't very well governed. And, you know, we have various ways of redress from the monitoring officer at Hinkley and Bosworth, the local parish council association, the local office for them is at Hampstead. And rest assured, this group has fired correspondence after correspondence into them to get tepid, useless results, really. You know, there's nothing of any substance come back from them that's giving us any confidence anybody's listening.
So what happens then?
Well, unfortunately, what happens now is that they will present this budget on the 7th of February, they will vote it through, and we will carry on picking up the tab. Unless we get together and we present ourselves on the 7th of February and say, guys, we're really not having this. But again, if you've watched the two films, just a sec, Jack, if you've watched the two recordings of the two meetings, you could see a significant difference from the attitude in December to the attitude of the new chairman and his cohorts on Tuesday. And we really don't need to say anything else to you, but have a watch and make up your own mind as to whether or not you're happy with what's going on. Sorry, Jack, yeah.
I mean, you're on about as a group going,
Yeah.
what, go down, you mean?
Well, I think we
But
need
if
to.
you went down, if it like the one we went to,
Yeah, yeah.
as if it's them there,
Yes.
and us over here, and they didn't want to, well, you were there,
Yes.
and they didn't want to know.
Exactly.
And they don't want to know, but unless they realise
Well,
that
yeah, but do they give a toss when they realise or not?
Well,
This is it.
ultimately, unfortunately, in the same voice, we in May when the elections come up again, we have a chance to out them.
No.
But but unfortunately, the damage will be done now.
Yeah, but I've never been to a local polling for the local anyway. I've never done that. I've done it for the general, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't think
I
it's
don't know whether this year the general.
no. To be fair, I think it's fair to say, and there's two sides to every story, and I think I would add that I think for a lot of years in this village, your parish council, way before I arrived, from what I could read up and research and talk to elderly people, I think the parish council have done a fantastic job. I really do. I think they've served the community well. The community centre is something that the parish council are responsible for. And there's lots of other stuff around that the parish council have done over the years. And I do truly believe that it's only started to go wrong with the community centre and this current parish council since sort of, I don't know, late September, early October really, when it's started to fall apart. But the problem is that, sorry, again,
Couldn't we as a group write to Hinkley Bosworth and say no confidence in the parish council?
absolutely, there's nothing at all to stop
Getting
you.
it up and perhaps that's the way of getting rid of the parish council.
I mean, the monitoring officer at Hinkley and Bosworth is a lady called Julie Kenny.
And have you all been in touch with that?
Yeah, yeah.
And what kind of response did you get from that?
Yeah.
If you get right,
Lights on.
if you get right.
Not a very good one.
not, it's really difficult to have conversations when you're shut down a lot. Hardly.
So on the back of that is the mileage in going for a parish poll.
There is, but again, they don't have to.
They're not going to, but it's arming them to.
I mean, I would look at the camera now and say, if there's a parish councillor watching this, to be so pleased with so many people who took the trouble to come out, and you've not just come out for a nosy and a look, you've come out because you care. And I think it's important that they realise that we took to forming this group because we felt that through social media and our individual little missives on Markfield Watch and the like, that the word that's coming back to us was that we're just a group of whingers. We're just a group of troublemakers, we're just a group of people, and then if you're so good, you have a go and do it. Well, I can't put my hand up and say I did. Margaret can put her hand up and say she did. Klaus can put his hand up and say I did. And
You a councillor as well then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Stuart.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, Margaret, yeah.
Yes, just very quickly to say, because I think I probably should declare some kind of interest, is that I actually resigned from the parish council in early September, having served 10 years to the village. I took up another voluntary role across Leicestershire and Rutland, so I was unable to commit to both. So I resigned, but I left 9 councillors and a clerk at the time that I left the parish council. So just to say that I served 10 years as councillor, your vice chair. I was your chair of policy and resource subcommittee. I was acting clerk and responsible financial officer, the latter 2 roles unpaid. because those are the rules. So just to let you know, that's where I fit in. So I think it was probably important to say that.
Absolutely, Margaret, thank you, yeah. So, when we go back,
Well, I would say, like we said, there was nine odd council offers on then. There's one left now.
That was elected.
That was elected. There's one.
We were elected.
We elected. The other three are co-opted and they've been on about 6 to 8 weeks. That's your council, your parish council now.
So they can vote for another one to come.
Well,
No,
they
they're
can co-opt, they still, they can
There's six. And they all voted in between. Yeah, I'll vote for him.
It's
Yeah.
basically like a job
Don't put the hands
application, when a
up.
seat's available,
But they
you send
weren't
people,
elected.
you fill in the forms to apply for the
You've
council
got one
job,
elected person.
and then depending on how many applicants there are, they can co-opt people onto
And they all decide, obviously.
the council will decide between
when
themselves what attributes that person has to bring to the council,
So you got-
and they decide.
8 weeks possibly.
When I
Three
applied-
of them on there, running your council now.
when I applied to be a councillor, I looked into it and I felt quite proud at the opportunity to become
I
a
was when I
councillor.
joined 4 years ago.
And I filled
I
in
was.
the 3 or 4 forms as eloquently as I could, and I presented myself here. And what should happen in a council meeting, in the public section, is that anybody who wants to be co-opted is given the opportunity to stand up and say what they're about, who they are, and all about it. Ex-councillor Bowler interrogated me, as was her right, and
What we got.
should have happened. But you see, if you fast forward from the middle of September, well, beginning of September, just before you resigned, actually, Margaret, wasn't it? It was the early September meeting. If you fast forward to January the 17th, what you witnessed there was a councillor who was co-opted onto the parish council who didn't even attend.
Yeah.
Now, quite how that works, I'm not sure, but his picture's up on the Rogues Gallery this evening, so I guess he signed up and he's there. But this is where the standards and the policies and their own agendas and the conduct that should work to is questionable.
Very questionable.
I mean, there's an interesting document that, and they hate me pulling this out, and Councillor Borley said, I've got a copy of that on the 17th of January. Well, my suggestion would be perhaps have a read of it, because it's called the Community Engagement Statement of Intent. And it sets out what that parish council want to do to engage with us, the community. And I could bore you rigid with its content, but I'll pick a few. I'll pick a few headlines for you.
Really sorry, I've got a post about it,
That's right. But you know, the first one says that we've got to represent and promote the interests of the parish of Markfield and all the people. It says we're going to work closely with residents, businesses, and community groups. And we're going to engage with as many people as possible who want to participate in decision making, monitoring services and planning for the future.
Thank you so much, thank you.
No, thank you.
The parish council hopes to achieve improved and better communication with the local community. And it goes on. And the other thing that's very important, under provision number 3, is all meetings of the council are open to the public, and a period is set aside at the beginning of each meeting for public participation relating to items on the agenda. So somehow at the 17th of January, the bit that should have been at the front was at the back. And I, without being cynical, I just rest my case on where we've got to. And all I would say to you good people is, it's up to us. If we don't save what we've got, and if we don't work hard to make sure that we take control, but are allowed to take an interest in how it develops, I can't stand here in any good conscience and tell you how the community centre is going to be run in 6 months' time.
Do you still have any anybody interested to take on the lease for that community centre?
An interesting point, Klaus. As you know,
Yeah,
as we know, there were two interesting parties.
Who needs to know that?
I think I've spoken to Richard Hill at ME Sports today before I came to this meeting to get clarity on his position and whether or not he was prepared to have his company's name mentioned this evening. As of today at 4 o'clock, Richard Hill has had no further contact from the parish council with regards to entering into an agreement to negotiate or tender for providing services at our community centre. Now just remember folks, this is the guy who the parish council went running to the night before they suddenly realised that they were running it to help them out with a report and the full health and safety and the compliance check of a State of the Nation report. That report is damning. That's the report that contains the 32 non-compliances and the 28 building issues that are outstanding. Now, your parish councillors probably would tell you that that report by that company was done with an ulterior motive. And to try and see fair play in all of these things, you could actually sit down and say, well, yeah, you can probably see why he had a vested interest in making it sound worse than it was. But if you put that report against a Gold Crest building survey report, against various other reports going back through the last year on the condition of the building across fire, health, building conditions, compliance, etc., etc., actually, this report was only telling them what they already knew, but they didn't want to admit. Since that time, they've commissioned yet a further report about compliance. Now,
That has to be paid. That has to be paid for by us.
yes,
That's being paid for by all of us.
Well, according to the last meeting, it's safe. And they worked with Leicester County Council and the building safe. We've yet to receive that report as we keep asking for
But
it.
you see-
So we're willing to send it out.
so if you bear with us for a second here, let me just give you a bit of brief history
They
on
are
this event.
releasing a statement, Stuart, aren't they, on the next
Well,
meeting?
I was going to read the email because it's your,
They've bought the risk assessments up and everything else, and it's our councillors, it's us that's responsible basically, our councillors and villagers that are responsible. So any of the risk assessment that they have pulled up, so the dynamic risk assessment being done, and somebody going round and checking each and every single thing that it is safe, somebody after just me. But then, is there somebody going around doing the water temperatures, doing the fire
We don't know because they won't tell us. We don't know.
I think it's fair to say the fire extinguishers and the water are okay.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say that is because the clerk herself, who is trained, I understand, in the
Yeah.
water
Yeah,
fire
and
extinguishers,
it's temperature as well.
yeah, the fire extinguishers for definite are.
Yeah.
But if those of you who were there on the 13th of December or whatever date it was, Maddie asked a question. Is the
Yeah,
building
that's
safe?
it, yes.
Yeah. So she asked it again on the 17th of January, because guess what, we haven't had a response. So Maddie emailed the councillor today
And yesterday.
and said, can I have the courtesy of a response, please, because you've not told me whether it's safe or not. So the response that's come back today from the parish council is, I have been forwarded your email regarding the above, and I apologise for the delay in replying. The parish council had a review of compliance at the community centre completed by Leicestershire County Council before Christmas, which confirmed that the community centre was safe to remain open. This was referred to by the chairman at the extraordinary meeting of the 17th of January. Now, that may well be that they have got that document, and Anna quite right has gone back and said, can you give us a copy? If they refuse to give us a copy, then under the Freedom of Information Act, we can request a copy. And we seem to be spending a fair amount of time requesting bits of information like that. But the truth of the matter is, where we should be expected, in all reasonableness, to accept what they're telling us is absolutely correct. There seems to be a high level of reluctance to share information with us, to give people like Maddie and her kids the confidence that the place is safe. We don't know the context at which the report was commissioned. We don't know the questions that were asked. We don't know what the answers were. But what I would say to you is, and I think you're probably aware of things like this, if that report was worth its salt, there are two important things when you walk into the community centre lobby that scream out to me just who's looking at what. Because on the 17th of January, the insurance policy on the wall expired on the 19th of December 22nd of December last year. Now, we don't now as much as they tell us all these things are right, yeah, as much as they tell us all these things are right, because there's been no policy and resource committee held, the application to renew insurance never went through any formal meeting. So, was it renewed?
And also, the premises licence is in a charity's name,
Yeah.
not the parish council.
Yeah.
It's a charity that belongs to the parish council.
So when you look,
I thought someone got that.
so when you look at
Personal licence holder,
Got personal license.
no, there's a difference between the premises licence and the personal licence
The
holder.
premises one is still at the bar, isn't it?
Yes, and that's under the Markfield Recreational Ground Trust.
Oh, right.
Now, I don't know who the personal licence holder is, but I'm told it should be the clerk, but I'm yet to discover that information.
Right.
so where we are, folks. So when you the charity, I mean that brings me on to another subject. If you're happy still.
Which will take another whole meeting
Well,
if you go into the Markfield
Yeah.
Recreation Ground
So-
Trust.
But just in real précis quick terms, the Markfield Recreational Trust is a trust of a considerable number of years of age and somewhere. Yeah. So it was adopted under the Charity Commission way back in 1980 something, I think it's documented. Sealed 3rd of July 1986, extracted from Charity Commission's website. And it's interesting this because, again, if you've watched the 13th of December, you'll have seen me challenge the clerk on the parish council's role in this charity. So we've been being told for a while that when the parish council take over the community centre, they're going to run it under this charity. And therefore, running it under this charity, they'll be eligible for grants and various other things, and they won't have to pay rates. But because they've made such a dump breakfast, and forgive my language, but that's the politest term I can think of getting this together, they now are having to run it under the parish council, and they will pay rates. So that's another £9,000 burden.
Who does it actually bring an income in now?
No.
So why is it still open then?
That's a good question.
Very good question.
That's the question.
How can they?
I resigned because of that reason.
Yeah.
It's still open. Yes.
Well, we want, my son, I've still got the paper clipping for the Leicester Mercury, him and his mates raised some money to make the first plywood
Yes.
Yes, skateboard.
skateboard.
Yes.
And that's my pride, them lads, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good lads, and they got
Yeah.
the skateboard built.
There's
So
a-
that is part of us, it's part of everybody.
Of course it is.
Yes.
And as a new person, trust me, I absolutely respect
Yeah.
that because, you know, I grew up in a village over in Lincolnshire and I know what village values are all around. And
Yeah.
it's a community and that's what this village stands for.
And everybody does help out.
Of course they do.
They do for them. And it would be great to see things for the kids to go go on. Everybody moans about, oh, the kids. Well, what is the problem?
But you see, as part of this parish precept costs that we're going to have to bear unless they backtrack and say we're not going to put it up. So out of the money that they're going to raise from us, the first thing they're going to do is stick £47,000 in the Markfield Ground Recreational Trust bank account to run the community centre, but they can't use the money that's in that bank account because the governance on that charity is not yet formed.
Yeah, they can't access the
So
fund.
it's semantics really. They're going to move money from there to there just to move it back after they've got it passed. So that's the first
But
thing.
the other thing as well is, personally for me, we ain't got a lot of money,
No.
but if that's going to provide for the community,
Yeah.
well, just mean if it's going to go forward to what it has been,
Yes.
let's let everybody fight for it.
But you see, the problem that we've got is that under its current stewardship, the parish council, there's no way on God's earth that they can turn where it is to a viable operation going and sitting down there for an hour a month having a meeting. It's going to take some hard yards from a lot of people. And I think the other thing that people probably do underestimate as well, having spent time talking to Ron and Dawn Grantham, there was a considerable amount of voluntary hours invested in that place, free of charge.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which the parish council now have got to pay for.
Yeah.
So they're on their budget, and it's on the website. I would encourage you to go and have a scramble around and have a look. They're talking about 60,000 a year wages down there. They've got a budget issue that they reckon it's going to cost 91,000 a year to run if they run it themselves. I ran the same budget, and on my numbers, and I used a lot of information that came from the MCA on my numbers. I think it's more like 140,000. And I'd stick my neck out now and say to anybody that's watching and anybody that's here tonight, I would say that place is probably losing in excess of £5,000. But they're just pouring into a black hole so that they can sit there and say, we kept the community centre.
And that's our money that we want to put like the kids' playground. There's 2 swings, there's no swings there now. Wrong way. There's those things that money is used for, not to maintain bloody
But we don't want to lose the community.
We won't lose it. It's ours. We'll not lose it.
I think one of the questions we asked was, could it go to public consultation? So could what we're going to do with the music? And very sternly, the council said, no.
We haven't got time.
Why
Because the answer that Councillor Brown gave in this room, she said, on the 13th of December, we haven't got time to go to public consultation. We're 6 weeks further forward, and I would argue that if we'd have gone to public consultation, we would have maximised it.
And to just interject as well, there is a lease in place already that the parish council set in place some time ago. So there is a lease ready and waiting for, if there was a third party, to come in and just take it over.
So has it been actually advertised?
No, it's not been advertised.
I emailed them, and my question was very simple. Why do you want to run it? Why do you want to run it? The parish councillors, there's a lot of work to do. Besides the Markfield parish,
No experience.
not one of them has answered me. It was a very simple. I asked them all personally, because ultimately, the parish council should be working with us as a community. We should be working with them. We should be joining forces together. And I've asked that question. Nobody has said
I feel very bereaved because I spoke to both parties when I was a councillor as to who would take on, who would get involved in taking on lease for that building. And the last people I spoke to, obviously, was M&E Sports. And I laid down at that time that the parish council keep the building, we are landlords of that building stays with the parish council, and we look after the externals of it, and we're, provided we get the right, it's a piece of cookie place, we want a 25-year lease on that building, and for them to expand it, and give them X amount of time rent free till they got it sorted. There's a lot of money got to be put in on this. But then money coming back to the parish when they start making profits and we have it back. And that's how it's, and that's how I left it. And I'm now here that we've not even gone back to the poor people. And I think we should be putting kid gloves around that person because we need that person in the sports now.
I mean, you only have to drive past their premises and you
Oh,
look at that and
they are very clever people. They've got the expertise.
I mean, what makes it doubly bad about all this is that, you know, again, I'm not having a pop at the parish council. I'm sure in their way they're doing whatever they think is the right thing to do. But the very person who they asked to go and help them with a report and give them an operational view of where they were and what they'd actually got hold of, they've cast aside now as if he's inferior. But it's the very person who, a month before that, there was conversations going on with about you know, nobody, we absolutely, and I don't think anybody here with integrity would suggest that we will go trooping up the road and say to any sport, there you go. But I think what we should be doing and what the parish should be doing is giving any sport and any other person who's interested the opportunity to tender properly and legitimately under the parish rules, under the Hinkley rules, if it's of a significant enough value, and if it's done proper and you know, transparent, and they come back and they say, this is where we are.
Well, I believe in these sports, people have, after I spoke to them with Walter, it was, and one of the legal people on the panel, Rebecca, he was going to put forward a plan of where he thought the lot was wanted. And I simply stipulated 25 years that they could have, and that the building was never going to be theirs, but that they could expand it if they got planning permission. But the building was always Parish Council building.
There was another company.
There was another company that didn't back out because they couldn't get enough figures for a better word. They hadn't got the figures in the block off.
Can I just ask, guys, this was all done, this wasn't because it was about to tender, this was all done because it was already interest before?
There was interest, these two parties were interested, so there was a
It's not been put out to tender yet?
No.
No.
So if we've got two people interested
We've got one,
before
I think.
or now
One,
one,
I think.
how many would we have if we put it out to tender?
Well,
I think you'd be surprised. I think we'd have 3 or 4 that would come in because when you actually look at the model of community centre providers such as Emmy, we can talk about them because they've allowed us to, and there was another one who I don't think it's correct to mention their name because
It's commercially sensitive.
it's commercially sensitive. But when you look at, for instance, any sports website and what they do, they would run it as a not-for-profit charitable arm of the ME business. And all the profit would be reinvested into the community centre. And they've got 7 or 8 of these centres around the country. They're successful. And they've had people who are in exactly the same position as what we may be in, who have actually gone to them and said, we've got this community centre, we really don't know what to do with it. We're a gang of pensioners on the parish council, we don't want to run it. Can you help us? And they've gone into partnership with them and come up with a deal that creates an income. Because for our group, for this community group's perspective, that if we go out to a third party, then the parish precept doesn't have to go up. So therefore, those people who are in distress and can't afford an increase in their council tax precept element don't have to worry anymore. And secondly, we can see in the future the opportunity that a rental income will come back into the community.
And thirdly, it will probably close down for a few weeks, but we will all know that it's safe, which is ultimately, they will present those documents to us all.
And they will update
Because that's what they will do. Yes.
You know,
And that's what we want,
Yeah.
whether it be a pensioner or a mother and father
It doesn't
group going
matter.
on there.
You want to know
You
this,
see-
isn't it? Yeah.
You see, the interesting thing, folks, as well, just going back to the Markfield Recreational Ground Trust, that some of them might not know. If they got this off the ground and they ran it as the Markfield Recreational Ground Trust, then the parochial church council of the ecclesiastical parish of St. Michael, Markfield, Markfield Congregational Chapel, Markfield Conservative Association, Markfield Cricket Club, Markfield Football Club, Markfield Girls Venture Club, Markfield Labour Club, Markfield Youth Club, Bradfield District Branch of the Royal British Legion, the Scouts, the Trinity Methodist Church, and the Markfield Welcome Club, which I'm now told is the Mayflower Court team, are all eligible to have a representative member on the Committee of Management for the Markfield Recreational Grounds. I've got correspondence from the clerk of this parish council that says none of those organisations are still in existence.
In our village.
In
We
this
don't have
village.
scouts, we don't have the church.
Now, I did a rough poll as I walked around the village and talked to different people who know about this organisation, and I've ticked at least 9 of those organisations that are still relevant. They may not want to take part, and that's fine. But this community and this parish council should afford them the opportunity to either have a seat on that table or not. But to dismiss them as if they don't exist, when a lot of these organisations are deep-seated in the roots of this community, is disgraceful. From your temple, so
Yeah.
that's how messed up the whole thing is, and that's why we formed this group to try and get some clarity, some leverage, and the chance to be heard. Unfortunately, what we've achieved so far is we've got the parish council to shut down on us, which is not quite what our first ambition was, but unfortunately that's the world we're in. So I think I'm sort of expired really, but if anybody's got any questions, absolutely shout them out.
How did they take on members of staff and organise the finances to run the community centre when they're in breach of their financial regulations?
Well, it's a difficult one for you, Dave, isn't it? Because if you remember on the 13th of December, we questioned the clerk and we said, how much are you taking? I don't know. If you look at the accounts, if you look at the receipts under the Policy and Resources Committee published paperwork, their actual income up until the 13th of December was £33.75 for a room hire from Markfield Gazelles or somebody. But,
And on the 13th of December, they were supposed to appoint their board of trustees for the Markfield Recreation Trust. It didn't happen. They went into closed session. Yet it's the Markfield Recreation Trust that hold the alcohol licence, the premises licence.
yes,
That was that organisation.
I think Margaret will probably just pitch in and...
Yes, it's a point of information if it's useful to the meeting, because let me be absolutely clear, as an ex-councillor, and Klaus will be in the same position, we have to be very careful moving forwards, because we've been privy to some information in private session which has to remain in private session as far as we are concerned, and to a certain extent, Stuart, as far as you are concerned.
Absolutely.
But I don't think I'm breaking any confidences regarding the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust, because I can actually bore for England on the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust. Now then, this is a charity that, it's a charity that's been around since pre-war, post-war, talking Second World War, okay? Now, when I became involved with the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust, when we were getting ready to give a new lease, because the lease on the community centre, David, was it 20 years or 28 years, the old lease?
21.
21, do
Yeah.
forgive me, because I'm going from memory now. So the lease, the old lease with the Markfield Community Association was coming to a close. 2 years out of that, so 2 years ahead of that, we started to plan for renegotiation of the lease with the Markfield Community Association. Because I have a research background, I realised that there were some things that needed to be put in place because that land was very complicated. Some of the land was owned by the parish council. The land on which the community centre sits is owned by the parish council, but parcels of land, the old football field, I wasn't in the village then, was owned by the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust because there were loads of land swaps went on in Markfield. The institute closed down. Again, you all know more than me about this. Land swaps. Who built Chitterman Way? Fitchett's, was it?
Yes.
There was land swaps. It took me 2 years of extensive research in that chapel where all the records were stored to regularise the land. We had to go, didn't we, Klaus, to the land registry. We had to make statutory declarations because the new lease had to be between the Markfield Parish Council and the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust, together as landlord with whoever the lease goes to. Now, I knew, and if any of you have seen the recording from December, I said this, that Councillor Lay, who was chair at the time, and I was vice chair, we took extensive advice on this charity from a charity lawyer in Ashby de la Zouche, because we knew we were coming up, whoever the lease goes to or would have gone to, we had to put that work in place. That was paid for because we had to take proper legal advice, and everything was there to be put in place for the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust to be put in order at the Charities Commission. Okay, that was all left in place. Am I right, Klaus?
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that helps. It's probably gone off at a bit of a tangent, but that's where the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust comes in. There were things like, again, I don't want to bore you, these people would have to be consulted, there would have to be meetings, you would have to get these people on the list or representatives. It wasn't a terribly complex piece of work, to be perfectly honest, but it was a piece of work that needed to be done. So I don't know whether that helps explain a little bit, but that's where the Markfield Recreation Ground Trust fits in.
Can I just ask, I'm just trying to get my head around this, I'm very new to this, I've actually lived in the village for 20 years, and what's gone on in the last 2 weeks online is like, whoa, that's amazing. So I'm sort of trying to keep quite an open mind at the moment, sort of all which ways. But I'm interested in what you said about the parish council. I just want to clarify. So the 5 current councillors, how many of them, am I right, you said earlier on that they've actually only been appointed very recently?
One of them's been on for 20 odd years plus.
That's the only elected member.
Yeah.
She's the only elected member.
Yeah.
And the other 4 now, I think. One got elected last week, I think.
Yes.
And the other 3 are must be 12 weeks ago.
Okay. So
And they're all co-opted.
yes.
Yes.
So by and large, it's a very new.
Very new.
So a lot of these difficulties that you're talking about is for people that know, people that obviously been council and probably been part of it. Do you feel that it's just that just is probably really downgrading it? I'm not trying to sort of say it's not a problem when it clearly is, but is it down to their sort of ignorance, I suppose, their inexperience and their ignorance of realising how.
Yes, you can, yeah.
When I joined, I did some research, and I'm fortunate that I'm retired, so my time is mine to say where I want. And I think what's equally important is, and this is what I find difficult, the parish council, way back in June or September of 21, decreed, quite reasonably, that everybody should undergo basic code of conduct training. And help me out, Barbara. What was the other one? There was code of conduct training, and there was another one.
How do you treat people?
New council training. Chairman training. Planning and highways chairman training. All these things are
Well,
Ready available. There's also one on finance. A lot of them are on Teams and Zoom and all this, so they're not difficult to go and attend. We've asked this current parish council how many of them have done the basic codes of conduct training and you know, the chairman training and all the other trainings that are probably a requisite of us as the community that we would expect from our councillors. And I think in years gone by, certainly all the previous councillors and all the previous chairmen and chairwomen and various other officers have all done all the requisite training to make sure that they're best equipped to deal with our best interests. And whilst I absolutely hear what you're saying, you know, when you sit there for the first time, it's like the Indiana Jones boulder coming down the hill. You know, you think, goodness me, what's happening here? But it's incumbent then on every individual, if they really want to sit around the table, to go off, find the information, get themselves trained, and understand what they're committing themselves to do, because it's an absolutely, probably the most important thing you'll ever do in your life.
I have to admit, when I first joined, I'm frightened. I'm not going to know where to go, who to ask. I bet it took 12 months, and that was hanging on to Margaret and hanging on to Tony Lockley, my mentors, to know who to go, where to get training. You've got to have that much information. You don't realise, but you've got to have.
Can I just say, Stuart, me and Maddie have been attending meetings for 18 months. And when we first started going, it was something that we did have a bit of an interest in, and we went there to learn.
Yes.
Yeah, we wanted to learn with a younger generation, and we thought, well, you've got to learn as much as you can before you think about taking the seat. But it was very hard to understand what was even going on in the meetings half the time. There's no clear voice of a vote, for instance, which was just so confusing because you're on one thing and the next minute you're on the next one, and you think, well, what happened there? Was they voted in, but they're not?
I mean,
we used to sit there a bit like, well, what's going on?
It summed it up for me on the 13th of December. You've got a chap there who was vice chair, and his opening, some part of his opening gambit was, well, I'm packing up, I'm off. But if nobody else comes, then I'll stay. And you've only got to watch it. It's there for everybody to see. It's not private. And then, in the heat of the moment, it was, well, we're only amateurs, we're only villagers. You know, you've got a public purse of in excess of £150,000 that you're playing with, and you sit there and admit that you're an amateur. We're all amateurs. We all give our time freely. You know, we're amateurs at what we're trying to do tonight, but by goodness, we're learning fast, and we're going along with evidence and good help from good people.
And as Klaus says, and Claire, I think what's important is we need to learn from those people who have been there.
That's right.
So we need to, Harvey.
Oh yeah, I had a question. Prior to the parish council running the community centre, the chaps were running it before. I assume they didn't have any access to the preset. How were they self-sufficient in the community centre, and why hasn't the parish council decided?
Well, I was the last chair of the community centre.
Okay.
And obviously the revenue from the various activities in the centre.
Was it self-sufficient then?
Yes. It made a marginal profit. But as I said, that was a contribution from HVBC, HHBC and the parish council, which was to help towards wages.
Just work, okay.
But even without that, it would have made a marginal profit. Is that right, Klaus?
Yeah.
Marginal.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't breaking any water.
Up until when though? Is this up until recently or up until?
No, before COVID.
So what's changed for us to?
Well, the lease is finished.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So why can't the parish run it without the 60,000? Is it? Or?
Well, I think there's two things there really, Harvey. One is I don't think they've got a handle on what it's going to cost.
You've asked the question what the cost of.
Yeah, exactly, because they couldn't answer when
We didn't know the state of the building.
Yeah.
And that was kept from us, so now that's come to light when we're trying to find, when we were trying to find new vendors for it, look, there's all these things got to be put right before anyone even walk in it to say, perhaps
With our volunteers at the community centre, we've got parish councillors.
certainly have, yeah.
It's the 12, 15 people.
And that's how
Very
it was.
close liaison with parish council as well.
Yes, yes, that's right.
It's, you know, I think when you take the costs to run it, and I think the increased cost in energy and gas, I think there's a question mark on the charging out rates for certain, because, you know, ME Sport did a lot of work on that. And certainly what we are charging, and I'll say we because it's our venue, what we're charging per hour doesn't reflect what it's actually costing by a fair stretch, to be fair. And I think there's also a tail off in interest of using it, and everybody will have their own opinion as to why that is, whether it's the state of the place or there's a better venue or there's somewhere closer or whatever. And it's not really marketed. You know, I mean, with the greatest respect to Ron and Dawn, the quality of the website wasn't the best. It served the purpose. And currently, it's fair to say, there's one young lady that's there full time, and there's somebody there part time. I don't suspect the clerk or the cemetery assistant are doing much marketing to get business in. So, you know, it's just
add a bit of perspective to the fact that we volunteer at the community centre in Leicester. The council tabled up funding from 2016 to 2019, and it took us the best part of 3 years with the full-time manager working 37.5 hours a week to become self-sufficient. It is a massive job. It's a massive job. It is more full-time. And absolutely, training that field with top job for the parish council. If they want preset from us, it'll be for years to come, not just.
When you started from something low base, Harvey, that's the problem down there. You started from one member of staff with questionable training. You started from, you know, nobody managing or directing or marketing or, you know, doing all the sort of basic stuff. So
and then the economy being it is now.
Exactly.
You know, it's going to be so much more harder.
Sorry, Steve.
COVID ain't helped it none. Has it? I mean, everybody's been in the same boat for the last 2 or 3 years. You know, you can't say, well, it's their fault, it's their fault. Let's face it, I mean, COVID's not
Absolutely
everybody's
nobody, certainly from the community group's perspective, the people who have called this gathering this evening, nobody in that group of people, in any way, shape or form, is saying that the previous operator is responsible for where that is now. I think our conversation is more with the current parish council and the way forward, and not a look back in
Who are you going to get? Say, if somebody do go in there, you've got to get somebody who's going to run it, who knows how to run it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
ME Sports, for instance, they do a lot with the school mental.
Yes.
Yeah, government on the school governing body. ME Sports have been phenomenal. We rarely see any more people going into the community centre. Maybe for a party in like higher around the hall. There's just nothing on. And that is our community. Talking around. Yeah, well, yeah. If anything, it's been a barrier with the concentration with the parking at the community centre for various reasons, but they're not utilised.
But again, to be fair to the parish council, there is a planning application in currently to widen the gate.
Yeah.
And I think there is an intent going forward to what you've been.
I was suggesting by the one bit of land for a car park, take set the issues away from the roads.
Yeah, but the most you ever see going down the community centre is for the blood things.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, we see you get that.
Doesn't make money. Doesn't make money.
That's not bringing in any money
Is it?
either.
I mean,
It's a busy thing.
I want to leave you with a thought
That's
on
most what people go in.
Dog.
Yeah, dog meetings, or budgets usually.
I want to just leave you with a thought on the community centre and the future of it. If the parish council continue with this view that they would like to run it, whether it's directly or in some subcommittee or whatever, in the forthcoming year, this parish council will have no capital projects to look forward to. So you know, there's another phase of dog walking, path round, lawn road, path. Klaus had put forward £20,000 for upgrading of play equipment and some picnic chairs and things in the there. There's a question mark over additional Christmas lights and all sorts of raft of things. They're all on the website for you to have a look at. If you go back to, I think it's October, policy and resources, there's a first draft list of these things to consider for the budget in the future. And the other thing, again, just to, you know, I'm probably a royalist and I'm probably a little bit too sentimental, but in 2023 we're going to crown a king, and it will probably be an event that none of us will ever see again. There is no provision in any budget for them to lead a coronation community event.
Nothing been said yet, isn't it?
Now, how can that on any level be right?
It was a thing
Sorry.
of Jubilee, Bill.
Yes.
Nothing to do with Jubilee, no, they tried.
Yeah.
We tried.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark.
I don't know the lady's name, I'm sorry at the
Karen.
front. Karen, I think you make a very, very good point, actually, because we are where we are, and there's a very, very complex set of things that have led to this. It's going to be partly now about building bridges, isn't it?
Yes.
I will say that the parish council took up a huge amount of my life for 10 years, and I had another 9 colleagues around that table, and there are now only 4 of them. So from a personal point of view, I can understand how difficult it must be, because I know how much of my life and time that it took up. So going forward, I think it is about building some bridges, but it's about that because I can stand back a little bit. I think but it's got to be built on what people are seeking, which is transparency, hasn't it? And answers, and openness, and trust, and respect.
But I think it's also fair to say,
If that's helpful.
yeah, but just to build on that comment from Margaret, we haven't just spent our time in the last 2-3 months formulating a campaign to complain on. We have, you know, myself, Klaus, and I know Margaret has as well, offered on numerous occasions to give them as much help as they feel comfortable to come and ask for. So even though I wasn't a councillor for long, I've gathered a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge about the whole process. Klaus is an absolute expert in playing fields and grass and parks, you know, and Margaret's experience speaks for itself. So those offers of assistance are out there for them to pick up and say, well, okay, let's, because there's nothing to stop them forming a subcommittee. I think I'm right, Mark, and aren't, that's called the community centre.
Yes.
And gather information, which is what we proposed, and we wrote to them and asked them if they would do it. And they sat here on the 13th of December and said no. So those offers are out there, and I would look at the council now that are watching us tonight and say those offers are still out there.
But I think it is important to note that under that scenario, people that are now not parish councillors, let's be absolutely clear, we can give information, we can give advice, they don't have to take it, but at the end of the day we must be very clear that we, or anybody's, they are the elected councillors and they are the ones that have to make the decision. And I think sometimes you can sort of lose sight of that. there is a procedure for parish councillors. They do hold the responsibility and the accountability, which is quite correct because that's why it's done. But as you say, Stuart, they can take information, they can take advice, but they are the ones that have to make the decisions. Does that make any kind of sense?
But equally, it is very important, if you're in the public and you come to those and you do something, it is okay to say, I don't know that. I tell you what, I'm going to go there and I'll come back to it. Because that, we're all learning. Yeah. We've all got to learn.
Yeah.
If you've got a strong team, you support each other, you help each other. You don't just shut down.
I think, being completely honest, this absolutely wasn't on my agenda until a week ago. I went to that meeting. But I do feel, I've not got experience of parish councils or any sort of electoral councils in that way, but I have got significant experience of school governance.
It's the same, Karen. Yeah, it's the same.
And I feel, and I've got a lot of experience running schools. I was an executive head teacher for many years. So, and I sat on education committees at the local authorities as a head teacher. So I do understand to a degree where that fits in.
Yes.
And I'm absolutely not looking for extra responsibility, but I do feel this has got under my skin, and this is my village, and I think my children have really benefited in their childhood from that community centre. So. I look at what's going on, and it's quite heartbreaking in a way that this rift has emerged for whatever reasons. And as I say, I'm keeping quite an open mind on it. So I am I've had lots of very heart-searching conversations with my husband about whether this is actually something that I should be perhaps contributing my skills if they're helpful towards. So I am looking at possibly contacting them to for a co-optimate. The one thing that can I just say this first? But very, very cautious. I do feel quite anxious about some levels of it. And one of the things that does make me feel anxious is one thing that I have seen is this enormous rift and a lot of, for whatever reason that I don't understand necessarily because I've not been in it, but a lot of bad feeling on the part of the community towards them, and there's a little bit in the back of my mind thinking, yes, I could step up to this, but then what if I'm the target for that in the future? And that puts me off a little bit. So I think we do need to be holding, trying to work together.
Certainly from the community group perspective, the reason that we moved it off Markfield block onto its own side was to give us the opportunity to control a little bit better what is said. Yeah. So for instance, myself, I've come under quite a lot of the personal criticism and threat through standing up and taking them on, if you like, if that's the right word. And it's not taking them on in an aggressive way. What I'm trying to do is to appeal to them, to understand that, okay, they can sit there and say, consultation, we haven't got time. But I'm trying to appeal to them to say that actually the fact that there's 15 or 16 people turned up here tonight on a horrible, cold and foggy night, they've not just come for a free cup of coffee and 2 digestives, they've come because they're interested in what's going on. Social media is great if it's kept at the right level, and I hope that certainly from our perspective, whatever we put on is definitely fact-based, it's evidence-based, and if anybody comes back and vehemently disagrees with it, then you might see that we've took stuff down. But there is always going to be a part of the community. I mean, I use a very random thing. I think there's 40% that are interested genuinely. I think there's 40% that are marginally interested and just tire kickers and people who just read social media to see what's going on. And there's 20% that don't give a damn. And that's great because that's called democracy. But if you could actually merge some of the 40% together and pick some of the 20% up, how powerful could you be? Sorry, Dave.
The animosity that's come towards the parish council is a very, very recent thing. Like, the only reason I'm involved in coming to the meetings and I see Claire and Maggie and Stuart and the councillors is we're part of the committee for Field Head to stop the development.
Yeah.
And they've been great, fantastic. They don't have to help us because we're in Ruby. But the parish council actually give us a grant of £130. They purchased some air pollution monitors for us, so we could do air pollution things. They didn't have to do that. And it was grateful that they did because we needed as much support from Newtown, Markfield, Markfield and Ruby to really stop these houses. Myself and Harvey, so we turn up to these meetings, we turn up and we've got ourselves on parish councils. And it's on record that I've sat here and thanked every councillor and stood down from when we've been here and said thank you. I don't know how many times to them. And the first meeting we turned up, we pulled in about 60 people. It was crazy.
I'm just meeting, I was going to say, this meeting in January was totally different. Yeah, I've never seen it like that. It's never been like that. All the meetings in here, it was a different venue.
Yeah, so the animosity is recent, and as I say, they have been great. And Klaus, Margaret, Stuart, they've been here. Claire and Maggie have been here when we've been here. We walked in like a thunderstorm. We walked in ready for an army. And we did the same with Newtown, we did the same with Ruby, and literally.
I was going to say, we put him in his place politely.
But the thing is, then there was a conversation around, and it was a case of, look, we've got the plan, you're not part of us, but we started then to learn through Markfield, who was at the time the only council to actually have a civil conversation with us and try and give us information. Newtown at the time, because it's on technically their land, couldn't talk to us. And Groovy at the time, well, they're a bit on the back foot, weren't they? And it took a lot of fighting at Groovy to get something. And but at Markfield, when we turned up, we ended up only having to send a few people because we could have a conversation.
Very much.
I think most people that Markfield
and
we're not.
I think the big one for me is the immediate impact that the precept increase is going to have on every single family. Those that can afford it will pass it on just another bill, and those that can't, it's going to be another challenge for them to make decisions that they shouldn't have to make. And I think so I think that's the first and foremost thing. And then I think the second thing is I strongly believe, and I certainly do, from the day that the girls came and knocked on my door and said, can you explain to us why you've chucked it in, that the community should have a chance to be heard about what their views are in respect of the biggest asset in the village, because it's been the cornerstone of the village for such a long time, and it should be rebuilt to be that again. However we do that. Sorry, I
was just going to ask, have you guys had to think about what our options are moving forward? With how to approach the parish council or how to address this? We cross one on them and say, we want to invite you to a meeting. If you don't attend, we'll vote confidence in parish poll.
Margaret will help to guide me on this, but I think we can go into a parish meeting as an option. But
we'll probably get the same as what we've got.
Well, I think if we have a parish meeting, then if there is a sitting chair of the parish council, it's common courtesy to ask them to come and chair it.
I'm not fudging. I've got no idea, to be honest. I haven't looked at.
This is the parish meeting.
Yes,
the parish council meeting will be held. It's a bit similar to what we've done here, but we have to give official 10 days notice.
Yeah.
It's very similar, but the councillors can come along and they can actually chair the meeting if they want to, or we can chair the meeting.
If the chair comes, I think they have to chair the meeting.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have to act on.
No.
That's the only bit in my dim and distant memory.
And that's when you create a poll. That's when you create a poll.
But it puts a bit of pressure on them.
Yeah. I mean, we've chosen to record, and it's live streamed, purposely to give those that aren't able to get the opportunity to watch and have a view. And no doubt we'll get social media responses during tomorrow that will give us a bit of a flavour as to whether people have scrutinised what we've said and agreed with what we're saying. and we'll see probably where we go after that. Sorry.
I've worked in American taxation and I've worked in finance for a lot of years, so I'm probably an exception. Right. But if they increase the fee set, saying, yeah, we're going to use it for the community centre, so they get everyone on board by doing that, is there anything to stop them getting the money in and turning around and saying, well, actually, no, I'm not going to bother?
Yes, there's nothing at all in that answer. There is absolutely nothing at all. There's nothing legally binding on how they eventually spend that preset. The only chance of recourse is when you come to audit. So obviously they do monthly accounts of in and out and balance. There's a question mark if you look at the budget about the reserves that they're trying to stimulate and carry. And there's a question over whether or not that's excessive in these times of economic crisis. And then probably personal views more than the overarching. But as far as the budget is concerned, it is the responsibility of the responsible financial officer for the council to prepare, and they're the only paid servant of the parish, and it's the clerk. So she has the responsibility of managing the budget, accounting for the budget, and probably advising the parish councillors on what can and can't be spent. So there's a lot of due process involved, but I think the first chance to question what's happening is when it comes to audit. I think that's fair, rather than with the sort of financial side of things. And that's probably a worry, really, if you want to take it a step further forward, because it scares me that they can't tell you how much they're taking a week or a month for the community centre. They can't tell you how much it's costing them, because we've asked the questions in writing and in the public participation in December, yet they're carrying on opening the doors. So, yes, sir.
Are you going to turn around and say, I'm not going to pay it? What do you do then?
Well,
everybody can afford 30 or 40 pounds a year. Nobody's told us yet how much it's going to cost, and how much it's going to cost a month or whatever. And if the Aldermans ain't got the money, what's going to happen?
Absolutely, speaking from my heart.
It's simple. You ain't got the money, how can you pay it?
I think we're all, sorry, we're all on the group now, aren't we? Anyway, I think on the police group. Yeah.
Well, I went the other week, with 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when
Yeah, 17th, I think.
And I tell you something, when I come out, I said to Simon, well, that was a waste of time.
No.
We just sat there like dummies.
Yeah.
They sat there, we sat here. I think you tried to ask the questions, you were asking them, and they didn't really want to know, did they? You're thinking, well, what's the point in coming down?
But that's why we wanted to put it out there.
Yeah, but they're going to take any notice.
But we need to have a voice, because we've been a small number of us,
Well,
but we ignored. So it'd be nice to think that together, I think we need to go away from this meeting tonight, have a think about it, and communicate with each other.
I mean, it says, well, we've got them on, we've got it on the internet. Yeah, but not everybody's got it. There's thousands of people.
I agree.
I mean, my phone is an old-fashioned thing. Yeah, I've had that 10 years, and it's not switched on. I think I've used it once in 20 years, and I think I've still got £9.98 still in it. And then other things if they're done.
What we can guarantee you is that we're definitely not going to stop. We're going to keep doing our best.
People don't know about them. Older people do. I mean, I'm 73 now. I haven't got a clue how to do it.
But you're here. You come tonight.
Yeah, Simon Thomas is going to
Thank you.
You said on the way past, don't give me a piggyback.
He said you're going to be paying a bit more money and you shut down here.
Just,
He said,
I've got the last
yes,
question.
you want it and you were
As you
running
say,
it.
look, as a group and stronger, we started back in May with this is a Markfield development. That's now 300 residents, 289 houses. That's all the committee agreed. We meet as much as we can. 90% of them turn up. We send out a newsletter, and guess what? There's power in numbers.
Yes.
We learned that by walking into the parish councils,
Yeah.
or watching the parish councillors.
Yeah, but we can't have it here like that, because we ain't got enough chairs.
We were completely filled this when we turned up.
Well,
Well,
please,
Don't
yeah.
worry, we've got the outside people. Don't be chasing it.
You've got a passion, you've got a passion, you've got a way, you know what you want. Be that group.
Yeah, but are they going to listen to it?
Yes.
Do they?
We hope that we've written their conscience.
Well, I don't know some
They
of
just
them.
want to get voted in
I don't think you will.
Yeah, the mayor election.
That's what's going to happen. They just want to get voted in.
We're just mindful of time, guys, because we did try and set ourselves a bit of a limit. So I think if we just drag it to a conclusion,
Yeah.
we'll consider and watch it back tomorrow and just take a view on where we feel we are. I think probably a newsletter is something that we can do, because we could put copies in here, Margaret, I guess, for people to pick up if they wanted and stuff like that. So, you know, we will do this again. We'll know a little bit more after the 7th of February when the parish council meet again. As soon as they put their budget out publicly and any supporting information, we'll put it on the group so that those that are on there get to know that it's out there and what it looks like. And thank you very much for turning on.
Thank you.